Okay, for today's work and additional literacy time, Joy Hakim's Colonies to Country, The Trouble with the Articles of Confederation. I know we're getting a little repetitious here, but we're deepening our understanding of history. Experimenting with a new nation. Joy Hakim is a very good history author, too. And I'll do a little interpreting. She's deep. The American Revolution was unusual. It produced people who were good at nation building. They had studied hard, and they had read a lot of Enlightenment thinkers about rights and law and government and society. There was a lot of thought that actually went into it. When you look at other revolutions, like the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution, which was in 1917, you'll see, though, that ours went down just totally different. And we actually had a lot less chaos. At first, though, it seemed that might not even happen. And that's what's amazing about American history, is not only was it improbable and lucky and amazing and weird and clever that we were able to beat the British at Yorktown. And the British kind of just sat back going like, I still got a big navy and I can still get you. But it was not only amazing that we did Yorktown, but it's kind of amazing that the country even started. And we're going to be watching some of Hamilton here and there. Alexander Hamilton actually contributed so much to making it actually happen by being treasurer. We'll get into that for another topic another day. But without Alexander Hamilton and his whole thing that he did, it really wouldn't have happened. It seemed as though 13 states would just not even get along. Whoa, true today still, right? It's like from the start. They seemed not united, that's for sure. Each state was printing its own money, and each state was making its own laws and rules. 11 states actually even started their own navy. 11 states. Wow. Virginia was the biggest and had 72 ships with cannons. The Continental Congress... Okay, I've asked you to define Continental Congress. Congress means come together. Continental means come across the whole land. A Continental Congress is a group of representatives who come together from across the whole land to vote on laws. The Continental Congress was trying to run a national government, though. So they started printing their own money, too. As you can guess, soon, actually, none of this money was worth anything. Because so much of it was circulating around, had different names. It wasn't backed by gold or silver. Not people trusted it. Besides all that, each state needed to raise money, so they started taxing. New York was taxing goods from New Jersey. New Jersey was taxing goods from New York, like they were foreign countries, every time something came in. Virginia and Maryland were squabbling over boundary lines. Little states were jealous of big states, and vice versa. In England, people were saying that the Americas would soon be begging to be taken back because the chaos seemed just so unruly. As you can see, though, we didn't have a good working plan for government, and that's why it got off to a rocky start. So, it wasn't the Constitution at the beginning. It was the Articles of Confederation, which we've gone into a number of times now. It didn't work, and we've gone into that too. The Articles of Confederation, as you saw with the worksheet, were made in 1776 when they were like, oh man, if we're going to be our own country, we got to at least have something to run a country. Say, okay, well, every state's going to run itself, and we're just going to come together and agree on some things. Didn't work. The Articles of Confederation were the beginning. That was because American citizens were afraid of power. Think about this. They had just had a bad experience with the king and the English Parliament across the ocean. That's what England calls their Congress. Parliaments. Quite a word. They were afraid of a strong Congress and a strong president because that's what made all their trouble. I think that's still in America, So they went to the other extreme, though. They didn't give Congress the power to do anything. And there was no president either except the president of the Congress. So did you know, actually, that couldn't do anything? So who was the first president of our country? Everyone says George Washington. No. It was actually a person named John Hanson. I kid you not. John Hanson was president of the Articles of Confederation Congress. Why do you not know about him? Because he couldn't do anything. Very few people will actually even believe you, though, but it's true. On November 5th, 1781, John Hanson became the first president of the United States under the Articles of Confederation. Truth, not fiction. In 1781, Americans were facing one of the toughest problems. How do you provide freedom for each person and still have a government powerful enough to accomplish things? That's actually one of your answers that we're going to go over. And I'm going to go over some answers, too, from the reading for your questions. But that's the big crux of it. That's like the total point where we come together. I'm going to read it over again. How do you provide freedom for each person? And you better believe Americans are still arguing over this question today. How do you provide freedom for each person, but also have a government powerful enough to get stuff done? Boom. There's no question. That is an example of a rhetorical question. You ask the question because there really isn't a definite answer. You just keep answering it and talking about it and answering and trying stuff and answering. Yeah. Okay. The national government under the Articles of Confederation was just too weak. Everyone seemed to know it, though. Most of the time, the states wouldn't even send representatives to Philadelphia to vote. That's how much of a mess it was. They wouldn't even bother. Like, why are we even doing this, you know? A lot of people felt the voting wasn't fair. Anyway, okay, Rhode Island had one vote. They had 68,000 people. Virginia had one vote. They had 750,000 people. Not quite the same. And then something really amazing happened in 1783 to really just add insult to the Articles of Confederation. Congress was chased out of Philadelphia by its own army. Yes, it's true. Because they didn't pay the soldiers their salaries 2 years after the revolution was over. But Congress had no money to pay them. And no power to collect taxes either. What a hot mess. So you get it. That's why people are taxed, so that the government has money to get stuff done. I, as a teacher, am paid from taxes. Yes. Policemen, firemen, paid from taxes. The mayor, paid from taxes. Okay. It would take 6 years for the people living in this land to create a workable government. And at first, the former colonists didn't even know what to call themselves. We began as a nation without a name. Some called us American Commonwealth. We won the revolution. Oh, yes, I live in the American Commonwealth. Others said the American Confederation. I live in the American Confederation. Some talked about the United States. And only a small handful said the United States. Because definitely, most people thought of themselves only as a citizen of the state they lived in. Of the 13 states, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Maryland, New York, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, and Georgia. You know what I'm noticing is Connecticut. So Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Delaware. 4 of those states were straight up Native American names. Straight up. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Connecticut. Delaware. Oh, yeah. Pennsylvania. Well, Penn was William Penn, but Sylvania was Native American for woods. Penn's woods. Pennsylvania. Okay. So people didn't say the United States because they thought of themselves as a citizen of their state. They didn't say they were from the United States. They said they are from Maryland. By the way, Georgia, Maryland, Virginia were all named after kings and queens. Yep. And then New Hampshire, well, there was Hampshire in England, but this one was new, get it? New York, there was York in England, but this one's new. Jersey, you got it. And then Carolina was actually also named after a queen. And then they split into the North and the South. Okay. The questions ask, what were the problems with the Articles of Confederation? I know I wrote problems with the new nation. Sorry, it's problems with the Articles of Confederation. The main points were this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 points. Each state printed its own money. 11 states had their own navy, and they didn't talk to each other or, worry about problems. Congress printed its own money. Too many taxes from states, often not even paid. They're like, how are you going to enforce it? Boundary arguments. I didn't talk about this, but this was one of the big problems. They argued over where their states were. Okay? So, what were the 5 problems with the Articles of Confederation that asking your questions? 4, 5. You can pause the video and write these answers. The other question. What was the big real challenge raised by the Articles of Confederation? How do you provide freedom for each person and still have a government powerful enough to accomplish things? Get stuff done. Can you really protect us from England? Can you really feed the poor? Can you really make your economy grow? Really? The one good thing, dramatic finger one, that came out of the Articles of Confederation was people were ready for something like the Constitution. They're like, done. The Articles of Confederation paved the way for the Constitution. Thank you for taking this 12 minutes of history time out with me. Appreciate it a lot. When you need to answer the questions, pause it at the video.